All right, everyone. Welcome back to another Jujutsu Kaisen Phantom Parade video. In today's video, I have another character concept. Wrapping up the Shibuya incident character concept videos, I have the big man himself, Yuji Itadori. I figured what better way to cap this off. I've done the Maharaga. I've done the Shibuya Sukuna. I've done the full form Mahito. The best way to end it off is with our big boy, the main man, the main character, Yuji Itadori. So what we have here is Yuji Itadori, as well as I made him a green type solely because I feel like it's a good roundabout way. You know, we had the red unit was the Maharaga, the blue unit was the Mahito, and the yellow unit was the Shibuya incident Sukuna. The last color I hadn't done for a character concept was green, and not to mention I think it's a nice way to like come full circle with the very first SSR. Yuji Itadori was a green. I think it's a great way to kind of honor that, maybe. Yeah, so this is the art I have in mind. I imagine his art would be like the snowscape or something like that. I think that would look really cool. The only downside is that Phantom Parade is a Chinese-based producer, that being Billy. So I'm doubting there will be any blood or gore like this. So they might just patch him up and give him the scars, which would be fine. But yeah, keep in mind he probably won't look exactly like this. So the role I have is that he would be an attacker, physical. Of course, it's Yuji Itadori, dude. He doesn't do anything but punch kick. First year Tokyo High. So his stats I imagine would look something like this. Mainly all physical. No Yujis have any Jujutsu technique, which is standard. And keep in mind, all kits are level 10. So, skill number 1, Determined Strike. No rhyme or reason behind this, other than 450% melee taijutsu damage to the selected enemy, and decreases selected enemy's critical hit resistance by 30% for 3 turns. This also has a chance to Black Flash at 40%. Not a bad chance. The next skill I imagine would be like his self-buff. I imagine it would be like this, him saying, be sure to take on your share of suffering too, when he's referring to Nanami, which I thought was a really sweet moment. I think it shows a lot about his character, and I'd like to include that on this character. It says, increasing own ultimate gauge charge rate by 20% for 2 turns, decreases own damage received by 30% for 3 turns, increases own critical hit damage by 50% for 3 turns, which is phenomenal. So, great self buff. I might, 50%, I might lower that down. I think all this for 20, maybe 30. Yeah, that might be a little bit more fair, but I like this. I think this is a good skill. Lots of good buffs. Decreasing your damage received, increasing your damage and your charge rate for your ult skill. Phenomenal. You can't go wrong with that. So, his skill 3, I imagine, would be the Divergent Fist. Dealing 720% melee taijutsu damage to the selected enemy for 2 hits. Of course, it's 2 hits. As well as increases own break damage by 300% one time and deals disruption status to enemy for 2 turns. Also has a base Black Flash rate of 40%. I imagine it would only be the initial hit. The second one is kind of like just the cursed energy lag. Or honestly, I don't think that's possible. Because you have to, I don't think he ever Black Flashes with the Divergent Fist, so I have to take that out. But I think this is a cool skill regardless. Getting that disruption status, the break damage, high damage percentage, as well as getting 2 hits off for 30 cursed energy, you can't really go wrong. I think that's a strong skill. As you can see here, right here, Divergent Fist was born out of Yuji Itadori's bad habits. He lost the technique as his manipulation of cursed energy improved. However, ever since his fight with Choso, Yuji Itadori has been able to control Divergent Fists. So, this is based on his fight with Mahito at the very end, where he's able to land that Divergent Fist and get that decisive surprise attack right at the last second, right before he hits the 100% Black Flash, which would be his ultimate. So, upon activating the skill, user undergoes a charge state and will attack the following turn. So if you remember, whenever he fought Mahito, he kind of had to like prep the shit out of this charged 100% powered Black Flash, which I think is a cool idea and a cool little mechanic, because 220% melee taijutsu damage to one enemy, guaranteeing a critical hit, increasing break damage by 500% one time, and nullifying the enemy's non-permanent damage reduction. That's all crazy. That is probably this is the single strongest attack in the game. Maybe outside, like maybe Shrine, the Malevolent Shrine, Ult Domain expansion, maybe. But you know, this would be the single best attack in the game. Period. It's not doing like AoE like the blue Sukuna would be, but this is for single targets. It would be absolutely insane. The only drawback is this, of course, but you may be thinking, oh, that's kind of lame. I think I have a solution to it, and I think you guys are going to like the solution to this. So, activate Zone State for 2 turns, guaranteed to perform Black Flash. However, if the enemy is under either Disruption or Stun status, the skill hits on the same turn. So, and this is kind of the art, you know, where he hits that Black Flash and lands it. So, really strong. If you remember up here, deals Disruption status. If you happen to have your ult ready or you're about to have it ready, you would hit this on the Divergent Fist. And then you'd ideally just go into this if they get inflicted with the Disruption, which would be, what was that, like a 40% chance? I think in-game is usually something like that. So, I think that's fair. You may not always get this, but there's another workaround for it. So, the skill hits on the same turn. So you just, if they're under Disruption or Stun, you hit this and boom, you land the attack, and they take all that damage. I think that would be insane. So, I also have the auto skills right here. Zone 100%. At the start of each turn, if Zone State is activated, increases Taijutsu stat by 30%, increases own Black Flash rate by 20%, recovers own Cursed Energy by 10, reduces own skill Cursed Energy cost by 5. With each Black Flash performed, increases break damage by 10% for 3 turns, and decreases the selected enemy's critical hit resistance by 10% for 3 turns. And then he's got the Vessel of Sukuna on here. So, just kind of an overview for this character. You know, what I would probably suggest, if this were a real character, clearly it's not, is, you know, he would be pressing this on his first skill, and then he'd be maybe getting some of these hits in and lowering their critical hit resistance. Finally, you'd want to, when you're getting close to your ult, maybe hit 1 Divergent Fist. If you get the Disruption status, you go for the Black Flash, you go for the big damage. So this unit is very solid and very basic, and I made him basic on purpose because I have a little bit of a surprise with this one for this Yuji Itadori. You know, we love Yuji, but what is a Yuji without his brother, dog? His brother, Aoi Todo. I made one for him as well, and he's also a green unit. So ideally, you'd run these two together. I know green just got a huge buff on JP, but, you know, pretending that's not happening, I think there should be a Yuji and a Todo that are released that are actually meant to be, like, truly busted together. And that's kind of what I have right here. So this guy is called The Exception, Aoi Todo. And I'm very thrilled with how this guy turned out well. I like this Yuji Itadori concept, but when you put these two together, I think this is where they're really going to shine. So, his stats, I imagine, are something like this. He's got some Jujutsu, but he's mainly a physical unit, of course. Compared to Yuji, is probably not that much. He probably has a little bit more health than Yuji, but his physical technique is probably lower with the cost of the fact that he actually has some Jujutsu technique. So let's take a look at his skills. So he have like an open arm lariat, which would be 0 Cursed Energy. It's purely a physical skill. Deals 350% Taijutsu to an enemy. Increases own break damage by 100%. 1 turn, I should add that. For 1 turn. Base Black Flash rate of 20%. You might have an idea what's going on here now. And adds a Takata counter. So what's going on here? Todo's got some stuff. He's got a Black Flash rate and a Takata counter. What's that bode for the future? Well, I'll tell you. Right here, we have the Boogie Woogie combo. And as you can see, I did a picture of the Boogie Woogie because you have to. It's just a phenomenal skill. But the idea with this one is that he kind of uses it with the ally with him. So deals 600% Taijutsu damage to the selected enemy. Inflicts disruption status. Hey, remember what Yuji really wants the enemies to have? Disruption status. This guy deals it on his Boogie Woogie combo for about 20 curse energy versus the 30 curse energy. So very good idea right there. 3 turns and the chance is 60% compared to Yuji's 40%. 3 turns versus 2 turns. It's almost seeming like these guys are meant to be ran together if you want to run that Yuji maybe at his peak, or, you know, I'm just saying. Base black flash rate of 20%, evades incoming attack at 20%, and also adds another Takata counter. So, where are we getting at with this? I've been adding all this stuff in. You know, you obviously know that this is Yuji and Todo, but what's one of their most iconic scenes together? Well, that is whenever Todo saves his brother Yuji and gives a speech. And that is what I made this skill 3, is the sound of the Gaion bells. So, this effect changes based on the amount of curse energy that he has. If you have 20 or more, every time you have 10 or more curse energy, he adds another layer of the quote he says whenever he meets up with his brother Itadori. And each time he says a quote, it adds a buff. So, as you can see here, increases own allies behind. Okay, hold on, let me rephrase that. Increases own and allies behind taijutsu damage by 20% for 3 turns when you have 20 or more curse energy. And he says the sound of the Gaion bells heals ally behind by 30% when you have 30 or more curse energy. Echoes the impermanence of all things. Increases own ally behind crit resistance by 20% for 3 turns if you have 40 or more curse energy. The color of the Sala flowers increases own ally behind ult gauge by 20% for 3 turns if you have 50 or more curse energy. Reveals the prosperous must decline. And then at the very end, temporarily gain an additional action for 1 turn next turn if you have 60 or more curse energy. And that's when he finishes it off with a however, we are the exception, which I think this skill would be fire. Imagine with me for a moment, if you will. You press this skill and you have 60 curse energy, and he actually, like the voice actor, says this stuff, or maybe you see text pop up of the Todo as he's saying this. And you see he's boosting the ally, him and the ally right behind him each time he's doing something besides maybe like this one. So think about it like this, like he's literally motivating his ally. And I think that is one of the coolest ideas to have with the Todo, is literally giving them a prep up speech and literally giving them a prep talk. When I was making this Todo, this is one of the first ideas I had, because it's a cool speech, and the idea that he's boosting someone as he's giving the speech is just a great idea in my opinion. So is this busted? Maybe, but fuck it. Is it corny? Fuck it. Yeah, I think so, but I think it fits and I like it, and I'm standing by it. So this is the coolest thing ever. I hope something like this happens with a Shibuya Todo. I swear to God, I really hope so. As you can imagine, with this Todo Shibuya incident, he gets a black flash as well. So, his is not as strong as Yuji's. Deals 170%, or 1,700% melee taijutsu damage to the selected enemy. Guarantees a critical hit. Increases zone break damage by 500% 1 time. Activates zone state for 2 turns. Guaranteed to perform a black flash. Increases the Takata count by 2. And I imagine it's the full scene, you know, where he goes through that schizo mode and he's just like, oh man, dude, I really hope that by the time they drop this like black flashing We Are the Exception Todo, that they maybe up their animations a little bit. Because imagine seeing this, dude, I don't care if he's a standard unit, like I'd probably go all in. That is such a iconic scene. So yeah. Auto skill is Zone Brother. When black flashes perform, increases zone critical hit rate by 20% for 3 turns, recovers zone curse energy by 10, and heals 10%. As well as, you may have noticed the Takata counters. Well, this is what it is. Once the Takata counter has reached 5, enter counterattack status. When targeted by an enemy's single target melee attack, deal 600% taijutsu damage to the countered enemy. Inflicts stun upon the attacking enemy. Hey, look. You notice that? There's that stun status again. So, if you haven't noticed by now, these guys are literally designed to like work with each other, with disruption, with black flashes, with boosting each other, with healing. You know, this is Oh man, I haven't even described like what this scene. This is the scene with the counterattack would literally be his necklace falling. And, you know, the schizo mode where he's fighting with Takada and he slaps, at the very end, he slaps away Mahito, or he slaps himself away or something. And they, like, the whole schizo scene where he's just, oh, man, dude. Like, I am probably the most passionate about these two units than maybe even the other ones. I think I'm really proud of how this came out. And I really think that, you know, you can't just have this I'm Yu Itadori without having the exception himself, Aoi Todo. And I think these two are kind of meant to be, hopefully sometime in the near future. I'm really hoping, man, whenever the Shibuya incident comes out, like all the good units for the Shibuya incident, that they do something similar to this. Because, you know, is it busted? Yeah. I would say this might be a little bit busted, but is it cool? Fuck yeah, it's so cool, and I hope something like this happens, even if it's a little bit toned down. But let me know what you guys think. Did you like this concept? Obviously, it may be a bit much, but dude, I think this is a winner. I really think something like this would be so cool, and I think most of the player base would love something like this. So let me know what you guys think in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.